Hi, good morning, everybody. Thanks for your time this morning. Now, hopefully all of you can hear me. What we're going to do today is we've got about an hour with you today, but we'll probably run through the demo at the first part of the demonstration so that you can see exactly what we've been up to over the past year or so. I'll just do a couple of quick introductions. So if I jump onto my first screen here, you've got Ming Huang, who's our front-end architect and architect of all things reporting, joining us, and he's going to be doing a demonstration of the product. You've got myself, Ken Miller. I'm the CTO at Panintelligence. I'm going to be taking you through, after you've seen the presentation from Ming, a little bit of roadmap where we plan to take the product next. And also we've got Charlotte Bailey, our operations director, and she's going to be manning the sort of chat window, the questions window. So obviously you're all muted on the webinar, but if you've got any questions as we go along, Charlotte's going to be keeping an eye on that. So feel free to type something in the questions window, and we'll get back to you as quickly as we possibly can. Most questions we'll probably leave till the end, but if there's something particularly pertinent as we're going along, then we'll try and address that as we go through there too. Just before we get started, I'll give you a little bit of the backstory, the reason why we've got to where we are today and why it's important. So there's three main modules in Panintelligence now that you'll start hearing us talking about. So there's the core product, the Pi dashboard, and that remains as it ever has been. So the core dashboard product now obviously completely HTML, and hopefully all of you are on the HTML, not the Flex application. Just a quick call to action for you. First of all, if you're still using the Flex application, then please get in touch with your account manager and we'll help you get that upgraded to the HTML application. We also launched earlier this year the Pi Analytics module. That's the machine learning model, which allows you to go and auto-discover your data. So that's sort of no more drilling, dicing, slicing, trying to find the answers. It'll drive you directly to your answer. And if you want to find out more, again, we've got lots of information on the website about Pi Analytics, or again, just contact your account manager. And we're going to be talking today about Pi Reports. Now, really, the dashboard is something that we've done. It's been at the core of our sort of working life and software for a very long time. Pi Analytics is kind of like the new cutting edge, exciting piece. But what we've really noticed, certainly with our customers, is that we want to get back to the basics. And getting back to the basics means the ability to send formatted reports, really with the view of replacing legacy reporting solutions. A lot of our partners and a lot of our customers are still reliant on things like Crystal reports or even tools that they've built within their own architecture. And we want to give you the ability to replace all of that with Panintelligence so that Panintelligence becomes one tool for all of your business intelligence requirements. And that's exactly what we're going to be showing you today. A really quick and brief discussion on licensing, because it is important. These modules require separate licensing. So the Pi Analytics requires an additional license key, as does Pi Report. And we're going to be very clear today. And we'll even round up at the end just to make it really clear what is and isn't included within the Pi Report license. But one thing you'll notice is you won't have access to the screens and the bits of functionality that we're going to show you today unless you have licensing within here. Now, we won't get into the actual mechanics of that license. Essentially, if you want to find out more or you've got a query about that, then please contact your account manager. They're ready and waiting to have those discussions with you to make sure that we can get you onto the Pi Report as quickly as possible. So, without further delay, you'd be sick already of me chatting around and everyone just wants to see the product. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to Ming, and he's going to do the presentation. And just as we go into that, I'll show you what we're effectively going to end up with. So this is the output, and you will receive an email, hopefully at some point during the webinar, with a couple of elements within there. And one of those elements will be actually the PDF, the output from Pi Reports. So you can physically follow along and actually have a good look at what the thing really looks like. But Ming's going to take you through the functionality and generate a report pretty similar to this, that you can see exactly how it's done, see how easy it is to do, and answer hopefully any questions that way. So I'll hand over to Ming.
Thank you very much, Ken. Right, so it's Ming here. So I'm gonna do a bit of demonstration. So this is the dashboard viewing interaction area. We've got the config screen following this button, and then we also have a section to do setting up reporting and scheduling and so on. So if I'm hitting this button, this is the bit that Ken says we have a bit of license control over this section basically. So if I click on this button, now let me just start from scratch. So this is the reporting section that we have. You can create a report by hitting a button like this, and then if I'm trying to mirror what's being created in this PDF document, then basically I'll be like start typing. We like welcome to your report. So then let me just change the size of the section, and then change the font size to be bigger. I can type. I can sort of like follow a bit of like a drop down for me to select the size, and then let's sort of have a bit of padding on the top. Then that's the header. So then in here, I can say I'm gonna add an image over here. So at the moment, this is sort of like having an image to represent the charts or whatever else that you put in. But later on, we're going to look for a way to sort of like maybe display the charts. So at the moment, it's done in this particular way for performance reasons. So at the time you are trying to set up the report, you don't see that. That's how it's implemented at the moment. And that's sort of like the MVP that we have. And in here, if I sort of like give it a title, and save, let's see, okay, right, yeah, let me just type something over here. So then I can preview the result, which gives me the front page. So that is just like by typing some text and then dropping something in. So then I've got the front page. So if I need another page, I'll just click this button, and then just to follow what the PDF has, I'll have a title on the top, and then I will have a few charts down there. So if I hit this twice, and then I can split this cell. There are two charts over here. So one of them is called attrition by age, and another one is called attrition distance from home. Again, change the size of the font. I can get rid of this error that we had earlier about some text not being entered. So then I can have some description about something down there. So this is going to be a scatter chart showing age, so then when I select this box, try to pick a chart from here, then basically that's the second page created. So let's try to sort of like, I can set the text to be starting from the right or center or whatever, and then let's say the font weight to be like bold. At the moment, it's got quite a few options over here, but that's being reduced in the actual well, in the later version of our development build. So yeah, so that's our second page. Let's save that and see how it looks. Right. okay, let me get rid of this element, which is not necessary. So if I hit this and save that, again, I can preview the page, and that's our second page. And if I sort of want to see the PDF version, which is the one that is end up gonna go out as part of the scheduling, then that has the front page and the second page looking like this. So now let's just continue create the last page, which is which has two tables. So over here, there's attrition heat map, and then there's another one called something like this. I can change the title over here to be attrition or staff. Again, save the result, and then you get the report being the same as what you saw earlier. So it takes a little bit of time to generate the PDF file because it's got quite a bit of content and so on. But yeah, this is what you get. So when you have a very long table, it sort of goes across multiple pages rather than sort of like hiding some information. So then, yeah, simple as that. You can sort of like swap the pages. You can sort of like move this page up or down. So if you move it up, it will be like the first page. But in this particular case, when we select this page, we want that to go down there as the second page, not the title page. Yeah, so you can sort of say I want the whole report to be sort of like set as landscape, which sets the landscape on every single page, and then you can sort of like change the border, the margin size, right? And then you can say on this specific page, I can actually sort of like see I can add a bit of additional gap if I want to. So then on all of those other pages, you follow the sort of like the report settings, and then on this specific page, you can have a bit of extra gap if you want. And then when you select a particular element, you can do some settings related to a chart, setting the padding for one chart, or setting the paddings or formatting for a particular like text element, or in this particular case, setting the size of the text over here like this. And then, yeah, I'm actually going to undo that and make it slightly smaller. Yeah. So then if I save the result and then, yeah, fire that as another PDF file, you get a horizontal version. So that's what you get. So the idea is to not having any configuration on the report side to sort of like build any data or whatever. All you need to do is just hitting this button and then get some charts that you have already created. So if people has a little bit of technical ability to sort of set up a chart or whatever, you can just put a chart into a report by hitting this button. So there's actually zero technical knowledge required to sort of create a report. Yeah, so that's it. So the idea is to make it as simple as possible to not have any technical issues at the time you try to create a report. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, I'll just yeah, hand it back to Ken.
Thanks very much, Ming. And there's some great questions coming through as well. So I can see Charlotte typing furiously away. So hopefully she's keeping on top of those questions, but they're coming in thick and fast, as we expected. So brilliant. Thank you very much for that demonstration, Ming. The really important thing here is the fact that everything we're building is from elements that we create within the dashboard. So it's all one and the same. So easy ways of coming in here, clicking those sorts of things, clicking within it, create your report. And obviously we've looked at one report here, but if we bring out our little screen here, you can see that they're now building that library of reports up. And then just as we were doing before, so a lot of you will be familiar with the schedule window. You're able to pick up that schedule item and decide exactly who to distribute it with. It works with the application bursting. So you build the report once, you schedule it to multiple users, and they'll only get their own content within there. So if they're restricted to a certain department or store or division, they'll only get that data in there. But the really important thing is you only have to do this once within the product. Okay, so I'm going to jump back now quickly to the presentation. So if I start that back up here. So where's this sitting us? And hopefully we've whet your appetite there and you're keen to get a hold of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the beta, the MVP. And this is really what we're talking about here is actually what we're releasing today is very much an MVP, a minimum viable product. So following, we had a couple of sessions that many of you were kind enough to join us on. We took apart exactly what scheduling meant to people and what reporting meant to people. And the key items that we needed, one were multi-item reports. So a lot of people wanting to be able to put lots of these things together. So historically, you've been able to schedule only one item at a time. And to be fair, it was great for a data table, but you wanted to put this data together. To do that, we've also had to rework the scheduler. So we've made vast improvements to the schedule functionality itself. We've brought in, at the moment, what we call very simple formatting, but enough to get us going, enough to find out where we need to be. And also critical to this was to be able to add text to reports. So as you saw Ming doing halfway through the page, he was able to put a body of text in there which described what the report was trying to achieve. So really, we're sort of gearing this towards where people might use board packs, etc. So charts, data tables, and blocks of text within there. Our requirement off the back of today really is to invite people now to participate in the beta. And that's something that you'll see in the email that's been sent out to you. And I'll check in back at the end of the presentation about this. But in the email, there should be a link in there which takes you through to a very quick page. And one of the questions in there is getting feedback in terms of how we're going to structure the beta program. Now, the way we tend to structure beta programs is we sort of gradually phase that out with people. So what we'll be doing is trying to bring a few people in at first and then include that beta pool as widely as we can to get people often using it. But we're very keen that beta program actually delivers you something that you're able to use, which is why we've gone as far as we have with the scheduler and the reporting engine before we sort of push that out to you. Okay, so to pull back a little bit again, so we first of all asked the question of our customers and our partners that what is reporting? And to be fair, everyone had very different ideas. I've said slightly different ideas there, very different ideas about what reporting actually is. And there's lots and lots of grey areas. And we know this to be true because we've even struggled with this conversation internally within our organisation as well. And what it sort of basically distills down to are the sort of three basic types of requirements or requests that people have made of us. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you exactly how they play out, because when people have mentioned reporting, not everything is what we consider to be the licensed reporting. So some of the things that have been requested are part of the core product and you therefore kind of get for free anyway. So there's good news off the back of this for the dashboard in general. So off the three basic areas where people are requesting features, the first is people want enhanced queries. So that's where it affects the edit chart screen. So the ability to write slightly more complex queries in there, but again, in a very simple way, achieve more with what we have. The second is obviously the scheduler and the report layout and multi-item report, putting text in there and making these nice formatted reports that go out to individuals and in different delivery mechanisms was key to what we were doing. And then the third is data tables. Now, those of you who've sort of followed the progress through the HTML product of the data tables will know that the data tables have come on leaps and bounds, and you can do an awful lot more with them than you could do even 6 months ago, let alone 12 months ago. So a lot of focus really is in data tables as well. But to make this absolutely clear, and what is in the core dashboard and what is in the licensed part of the product. I've sort of split out the roadmap items here. Now, don't expect to see every tiny item on the roadmap here. Just to keep it within the realms of a single page, I've tried to get that a little bit simpler for us all. And really, if I put a little red box around here, it's that middle item where things will require the PyReports licensing. But let me start on the left-hand side first of all. So where the requirements have come around where people want enhanced querying. You know, when they mention reporting, and what they really want to be able to do is query in different ways. And this boils down to one sort of real key area, really, which is at the moment our consultants quite often have to get involved, and people have to roll up their sleeves a little bit and get into the database. And we want to reduce the dependency on that as much as possible. So one key area that's come out is the ability to create what we would call a subquery. But essentially what that means is creating a list that you can feed back into another query. And that list could come from another data set entirely. So to give you a for instance, I might be running a report in my financial application, but I also want to limit that to a list coming back from my HR application. So show me everyone's pay slips where they belong to a certain pay grade in the HR system. Now today, you'd have to do some kind of an ETL process to extract that data and combine it into a data set before you involve the dashboard. But what we're going to allow you to do is to create the first query on the HR to spit out effectively that list of names of people who are entitled to a certain pay grade, and then feed that into effectively an in the second part of the query. So we then return the payment detail from the financial application for those people in the secondary item. And obviously you'd be able to build this over and combine this over multiple data sets as well. And that reduces one of the big requirements for having to merge data together in an ETL process. We're also going to allow you to merge data sources directly together. So this is what we would call a union, but effectively, again, in the same way as a subquery, it will allow you to join data connections together without having to do an ETL process. So if we looked at that same scenario again, the finance and HR application, we could create a single table which returned the payment details and the pay grade from the HR example, and allow us to do that without having to write any unions, any views, or any sort of ETL processes within the database. We're also going to start to introduce default variables. So things like today, yesterday, this week, last month, this year, last year, to make those abilities to query a lot easier. So where at the moment you might have to create a filter or wait for people to search, it becomes really important that the default variables allow you to just drop these into queries and off you go. Venn style filters. So those of you who remember a Venn diagram, we probably most of us last did them at primary school, but circles are of different data sets where there's a crossover, where there might be a joint. So you belong in both of those data sets together. So what that will allow you to do is very quickly create quite complex ideas within filters, but in a very, very simple way. So show me all the people who satisfy multiple criteria at once, and rather than having to go and build their filter criteria around that, you can just click in the Venn diagram and get the items around that. And then finally on here, and this isn't in order either, by the way, is the ability to introduce an OR clause into your query. So at the moment you can create AND data sets within your query engine, but we'll let you do ORs within there as well. So this person has been working for the business for 3 years or more, or they've started in the last 6 months. You know, those are the sorts of things that you'd be able to put together with that. If I jump over to the right-hand side, data tables. So what we also want to do to enhance data tables next is increase formulas within the data tables at the moment. So if you want to create a formula today, you have to go back to the data connection side of things and build an object with a formula within it. Now, obviously, that gives us all sorts of abilities that are really important. So we're not getting rid of that functionality at all. But this is to allow you to do things like quick sums within, say, a data table directly. And if you've been following the progress of the data tables in the HTML application, you'll have noticed that a lot of this functionality has already appeared within the data tables themselves. So you can do quick percentages in tables, quick sums, quick sum overs, those sorts of things within those data tables right now. But this really is to introduce more Excel-like functionality. Now, we're very careful because what we're not trying to do is recreate Excel, because it really isn't what we want to do. But give you the ability to create formulas in an Excel-like way, so certainly in an Excel understandable format, directly within your data tables themselves. What we also want to bring into here are a thing called icon sets. So at the moment, if you want to put an icon or an image into a data table, you have to include a bit of an HTML tag in there. It's not too hard to do, but we want to reduce that reliance on any kind of coding within the dashboard. So in here, you'd be able to directly map data to icon sets. And actually, Excel has a really good example of this, and we're going to do something very, very similar within the Panintelligence data tables. Also, we're going to allow you to create section breaks. Now, this will apply to data tables and actually to charts as well. So this is a really good example of where sometimes you do have to create multiple versions of the same table, but filtered for different sets. So you might want a different section within each data table. We're going to allow you to use a dimension as a sectional break, so that you can actually split a data table into different departments, so they become distinct data tables in their own right. But similarly with charts, being able to, rather than having to create a chart for every sales department, use a dimension break, and it will create a version of that chart for each one of those side by side. We're also going to introduce table level formatting. So if you think the way you can format tables in Excel at the moment, we're going to introduce as much of that functionality as appropriate. And that will obviously be something that we take a lot of feedback as we go through that. And then finally on here, not the limit of our ambition, but in terms of roadmap that's worthy of talking about, because it falls in the next few months, is mini charts. So this might be where you're able to include things like spark lines in tables, little mini pie charts or win-loss charts directly within their tables. And again, if you take a look at Excel, Excel has some good examples of how they've got lots of add-ins that you can put into Excel and do something similar. We're just going to make that available. And to be totally clear, the enhanced querying in the data tables, although they're sort of raised under this reporting mantle, actually fall within the core dashboard. So you'll just be able to do these within the queries and within the data tables that you already create within a dashboard. So they fall in and are part of the core application. So if I concentrate on the middle section, the bit that we do consider to be the PI reports and the bit that is under a licensing governance. So in the October MVP, the minimum viable product, so the first beta launch, we will have the multi-item reports, the improved scheduler, the simple formatting, and the ability to add text to reports. So that's exactly what goes in. Charlotte's got a question.
Will table level formatting include date formatting?
It's a really good question. Potentially, yes. We'll have to have a think about that. So dates are a bit of a classic business intelligence conundrum, which I guess is why you're asking the question. We'll have to have a think about exactly how we're able to do that. One of the reasons that we do tend to push date formatting down into the database is usually for very good performance reasons, filtering, making sure that we limit data sets when they come back. But where you think about the sort of formatting that you can currently do in Excel, and I'm careful to use Excel as a good example of date formatting because it's probably the worst on the planet, but allowing you to do some of that, absolutely, it's certainly something that we'll consider as we go along.
And continuing with that theme, will variables include year to date and last year to date?
Yes, exactly. So they're actually in the subset that we're first doing. The way we tend to challenge you all, I guess, is we'll release our subset of what we think is appropriate, because that prompts you to tell us exactly what you think could also be there. And that's exactly what we'll do. Interestingly, the default variables are coming up pretty soon. They're in the next couple of sprints, so you'll start to see those appear in the product very, very soon. Brilliant.
Great for now. There's more questions later. But...
Fantastic. Okay, so So just to be clear, the MVP is around multi-item reports, the improved schedule function, that simple formatting, and being able to add text to reports. So pretty much, if you've seen Ming demonstrate it today, that is the MVP, and you know that's where we're planning to get that out. On the roadmap for that, the next item that we're going to be looking at is the ability to schedule groups of reports. So rather than creating a single report, a single schedule for each report, you can create like a group. So you might have a Monday morning schedule, and you'd include multi-reports within there. And actually, it's a bit of a two-way relationship. So you'll be able to have schedule items that contain multiple reports, but multiple reports can exist in multiple schedule items. So some reports that you want to run every day, you'd include in the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday schedule item, etc. So an easier way of maintaining this. Also layout. So the next areas of layouts. At the moment, you can put headers, you can kind of put footers, and you can kind of put logos on there, but we just want to make that easier. So almost like a template layout requirement. So the headers will flow, logo and footers will flow over every page. Right now in the MVP, you have to add them to pages individually, but we recognise that's something that we need to increase pretty soon. The ability to being able to build filters directly within reports. So in the MVP, you'll have to put the reports in the charts themselves, but the ability to apply those filters directly within that report is coming along as well. And that becomes really important with the default variables. So where we're saying things like there are these grey lines and crossovers, these are the classic examples where the report filters really need the default variables. So I can schedule a report today to run for this week, and it will continue for perpetuity to run for this week, whatever this week might be in 4 or 5 years' time. It will carry on doing that. At the moment, our output is either to PDF or to CSV. And obviously, I think a few of you have hooked into the web service output as well. We're not taking that away, but we're looking then to increase the output to things like Excel, PowerPoint, and to saved directories. So you'd actually be able to output the report directory to some kind of SharePoint drive or something like that, and have people access data in the way that they're used to doing that. Further down the line, we're going to start to look at sending only if the data has changed within the report. So if the data has changed since the last time it was run, we will send it, or we will decide not to send it. It's a bit of an extension from the current exception type reporting. So the current exception reporting has a send only if data exists option. So it's kind of like you create a report which has criteria that aren't normally met, and if something should fall into that criteria, out it will go. So a good example of that is we use it for timesheets here. So we run the report at Friday looking for anyone who's not submitted their timesheets, and everyone's great here, so they submit all their timesheets. So normally it runs at 5 p.m. on a Friday, and nobody's on the naughty list. But if 1 or 2 people tend to be, and Charlotte's giggling here because normally there is somebody, and it's normally me, it will send out the report to Charlotte straight away saying, you know, don't let Ken go home until he's done his timesheet. But this will be an extension from that, so it would be Charlotte could run this periodically throughout the day, and it would highlight specifically those people who have done timesheets since she last chased up. And then within there, the ability to do things like markup changes. Now, for all you sort of geeks like us out there, the dashboard, really the direction we're starting to take is to make this much more event driven. So really things like Kafka streaming, things like that, we want to make the scheduler far more event driven than it is reaching out to the future. So yes, absolutely making sure that we're covering the basics, we're doing that groundwork really well, but the eye on the future really with the scheduling is to make sure that we can make this very, very much an event driven service and hook into all the benefits that will give us in the future.
So
Okay.
with regard to some of the requirements, I just wasn't fast enough to jump in. So there was one question that's come through with regards to being able to template a standard report format. Is that going to be a requirement moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first instance of that will be, if I just jump back actually, so Ming showed you some of the functionality, but didn't have time to show you absolutely everything. So if I just come away from the scheduler screen here and jump back into Apply Reports, within here, you've got a duplicate button. So at first, it's more likely that you'll create a chart, and that will be your starting point, and you will be able to duplicate it from it. And I suspect they will evolve into some kind of templating at some point. But certainly, in the beginning, you will have the ability to create these sort of templated reports. So in Ming's world, I didn't actually let him for the demo, but really what we would have done is we would have had the report with the front page and the footer all set up, ready to go, and Ming would have dropped the middle pages in there and used it as a template. But I was mean to him and I wouldn't let him do that.
Another question with regards to text this time. So can you add a dynamic field value into the text of reporting? So for example, sales this month was sales figure, and this is percentage change from target.
Right, I'm going to try not to go too far because I'll get into trouble for this. But in the August release, there is a bit of a bonus feature. So if I go into create a new chart here and go to chart type, there is a new chart type in here called card chart type. Now this is to replace everything that people are currently doing with HTML, and it allows you to very quickly create something that allows you to bring data and measures and things like that within it. So if I just click into here, and then if I go to the actual chart type itself and click on the little plus button, and in here I just go to my content, select age measure, you'll see this start to build up down here, and this can have any kind of text around it. You can start to bring in mini charts within here. You can start to bring images within here. Now, I haven't got any examples built up, but actually this is where you can then create this card image and drop the card in there, so you can create a context-driven block of text, so a whole paragraph of text in there that has got that. So I'll just show you this. I'll call it Ming so I can find it. I know this is a bit of a rubbishy example, but just to sort of show you exactly how this would work. So if I go down here and I'm going to split this chart cell up, and I'm then going to go and add in the Ming chart, which is the new card type, which will drop in there. And if I go to save and preview that, what you'll see when this previews, so it's just going to initialize and preview. I know it's a little bit daft there, but this could be images, this could be a whole context-driven block of text with your values in. So this month you have sold 45 widgets, last month you sold 35 widgets, please try harder. Whatever you want, and formatted however you want that to be.
So a similar theme but slightly different. Is it possible to embed custom style CSS or HTML text in the report?
It is. So in exactly the same way as you're able to do those sorts of things, the card chart type, and I'm going to sound like it's a bit of a catch-all because it is kind of a catch-all. The chart type, the card is there. Its working title internally was HTML chart type. So the idea is to eventually replace your need for ever having to write any HTML, but you can write HTML tags, everything in here as well. So we've got all sorts of examples. So there will be another webinar where we introduce the card type at some point, and you jump back in and join on that one, and you'll see all sorts of great things. We're just internally starting to learn exactly what we can do with that, and it's really, really exciting. Okay, so just to be clear, if I jump back to the roadmap, and I'll be in trouble for showing, this is our internal roadmap, and I've put this up in small text so that you can't see this and completely nail us by it, but this is the plan that we work on internally. And what I can say today is we're actually ahead of plan right now, so we should be able to deliver these things as and when we think. All of those items on the previous page that I was talking about, if I just highlight those in yellow, you'll see one, again, quite clearly what sits within PyReport, and actually most of the items sit outside of what we traditionally call PyReport. They are, genuine core dashboard items. But those little trees, I get in trouble even for calling them trees.
Do you know, we have exactly the same question that's just come in. Are those Christmas trees?
They are Christmas trees, and we even have Christmas trees in December. So we will have some form of tinsel and flashing lights on them by the time we get there, I can assure you. But those trees that turn yellow, that's the plan. So everything that I've been talking about there is coming towards the back end of this year. Some of it flows through into Q1 next year, really, but the idea is you'll start to see this functionality increasing very, very quickly. There will be, the proviso really is the fact that actually as people start to go through the beta and start to use this, that will help us rescale and reprioritize exactly what people need. And to be absolutely clear, and I've been asked by our sales team and account managers to be very, very clear about this. When we're talking about PyReport, we're talking about this part of the application. So in the dashboard, it is this button and these screens here is what we consider to be PyReport, and it's the scheduler and at the moment the multi-item reporting. That is what PyReport is.
Could you cover just a little bit more detail in terms of the scheduler? There's a few questions here about how does that actually work in practice.
Now, there's a very good reason I glossed over that, to be fair, because that's the final bit in September that we need to link back together. So this part of the application here, the scheduler, will very soon, and before any of you see it, will appear in this part of the application here, which is why I'm having to jump out to get to it. Now, what will happen, and I've only seen a screenshot because Ming's still developing this at the moment, but is effectively down here is where you have the option to bring in reports, and that's where you select a list of reports. So when you go into report mode, you then start to select that, and the scheduler actually becomes a header for everything, and it works in the same way as before. So over in the top right hand corner, how often do I want to run the schedule? So you can get really annoying and run it every minute and start broadcasting thousands of PDFs every minute, or you can run it hourly, daily, and when you're in things like daily, it's which days of the week and what hour of the day do you want to run that at. If you run it monthly, which days of the month? So I might want to run it on every day of the month, and I might want to exclude certain days within here, and do those sorts of things. Now there is a roadmap item in the future for the scheduler, which is allow it to bring in a calendar and allow you to edit a calendar, so that you can select or remove things like bank holidays and things like that within there. But essentially, the schedule application will look pretty similar to this. It will just be moved in location, so it's all in this one area. But that's the final piece of work we need to get ready for the beta. Okay, so I'll just jump back to the presentation here. So you will hopefully, and if you haven't got an email, then please get in touch with us. It will take you through to a quick SurveyMonkey link, and it should take you no more than 5 minutes to fill that in. It'll give you, if you could give us some feedback about the session, that would be great. It also will have the link in there to sign up to the beta if you want to get a very early version of the PyReports and get set up with that. That would be great. Really though, I'll just look at the clock. We've got another 15 minutes, so any questions at all, please keep them coming through.
So I've got one that's come in with regards to dates again. You've obviously triggered something here that's quite key to lots of people's hearts. Can year to date run on fiscal years beginning in April?
Yes, so where I was talking about, there is a roadmap item for scheduler to allow you to bring in a calendar. So at the moment we just have dates as raw dates, but we do need to bring in a calendar so you can adjust fiscal dates, year start, year end, so that you can actually have non-calendar version, you can have those financial versions that go, but also marking things like bank holidays and things like that. So you might have a Monday morning report that you want to run out, but where there's a bank holiday, you want to run it on a Tuesday as opposed to a Monday, things like that. And that will be driven by a calendar that will be editable by you. What we do need to make sure, and why it's a slightly more complicated task for us, is we need to make sure that that calendar fits within our multi-tenancy approach. So where you have a single site that you deliver to multi-tenants, that you're able to have a calendar which actually follows those tenancy rules. So different people with different fiscal years can have that as well. But that's certainly not in the MVP, but will be coming probably Q1 to Q2 next year.
No further questions just at this point in time. She says, have you considered being able to insert whole categories into reports, not just charts?
It is, yes, actually. So we're giggling at that because absolutely. So really one of the requirements that drove all this is people just wanted to be able to publish an entire category at once. So all of this data on here, off you go. So What we're most likely to do is allow you the ability to use a category page almost as the catalyst to generate a report. So in the same way as we've got a button up here, and this is sort of guesswork at the minute and designing on the hoof, but essentially if you imagine there could potentially be a button in here that you clicked on to generate a report, which would fire you straight through to here with that report using the category as like the starting point. So rather than having to flip backwards and forwards between those two and say, you know, I need that, I need that, actually just one click.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ming.
Yeah, so the alternative is on the reporting side, you have a button instead of just adding HR, you can add a whole category, which actually forms one page. So if you sort of imagine a category on the dashboard side, it's basically sort of try to mirror how one page sort of looks like. So we can do something to convert one category into one report page, and that's something very, very easy to do. And with the consistency that we develop, with the way that we split layout and so on, it's very, very similar to the category layout. So that's why our conversion of a category into a report page is actually very, very easy.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to steal Ming's idea because that sounds an awful lot better, because each page then we could bring in a separate category. So yeah, that sounds like it's a good idea.
Any other questions?
So we've probably dumbfounded you. Any other questions, obviously, going forward, then please get in touch. You know, we're really keen to get the beta underway as quickly as possible. So we'll let you guys know exactly when that is. If I jump back to plan, the plan is in October at the moment. So we've got our little star, which sits among our Christmas trees, and that's even starting to sound even more like the star on top of the Christmas tree. But I'm not going to push that analogy any further, or I'll be in trouble. But in October, so this is where we're going to start that, which would mean it would be part of the October release. So we'll be contacting people in the latter part of October to encourage you and help you and sort of go hand in hand and help you through that beta program. Really, at the moment, we've got the drive to allow PyReport to become live in November. So we're really anticipating that people will be up and running with this, certainly in Q4 this year, and you know that's something that's a key driver for us. I think if anyone has specific questions, or you know is really starting to think hopefully about what they could use PyDashboard for and what they could replace it with, then again, you know, get in touch with your account manager. We would really welcome some of those discussions right now, because it will help us, you know, juggle the items that sit on the roadmap and make sure that we get the biggest bang for buck from development as we go forward over the next couple of months. Okay, well that's been great. You know, thank you very much, all of you, for your time, and we look forward to working with you with PyReports going forward. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye.